So welcome to your first online lecture using a PowerPoint and recording. One thing is if I'm going too fast, which I probably am, remember you can pause at any time or you can go back and rewatch. So don't worry about the speed, you might need to watch it a couple times. The notes that you're taking right now are over mythology creation stories, and they will show up on your exam that we take at the end of the unit. So be sure you're taking notes while going over this. I will expect you to know this. When we talk about creation stories, we're talking about one of three types of stories. It could be a story that explains how the universe came to be out of nothing, typically. It could be about how the earth came to be, or how the earth became populated with animals and plants, or finally how people came to be. There are 5 basic archetypes or types of creation stories: the from nothing story, the cosmic egg story, the earth diver story, the world parent story, and the emergence story. Let's take a closer look at each one of those. The first is the from nothing story, and this is probably the most common of the creation stories or creation myths. It's going to be the pattern that Genesis 1 and 2 in the Old Testament follow, and it starts out with the universe having nothing in it. There's nothing, there's no air, there's no planets, there are no stars, it's just nothingness. And this type of story will say how a deity, a god, or a group of gods created the universe, either by wishing for it, speaking it into existence, or even just thinking or breathing it. These stories oftentimes get called ex nihilo stories, which is just the proper, academic scholarly name for them. These are the ones you're probably most familiar with. The next type, or rather a subtype of the from nothing story, are the chaos stories. Instead of there being nothing in the beginning of time, there's chaos. And what that means is there's a universe already, but there's no structure or order to it. Everything is totally random. Planets are flying in every direction. There's lots of war and battles. Typically in a story that has chaos as the creation, there are going to be multiple gods already fighting with each other. And what happens is one of these gods finds a way to either end the fighting or bring order to the universe. And this is actually where we get the word cosmos from. When we're talking about outer space, we refer to it as the cosmos. That's the Greek word for order. And when you read the Greek mythology and the Greek creation story, you'll see how chaos turns into order. The second major type of creation story is the cosmic egg story. And that's the view that the earth came hatched, or the universe hatched out of an egg. Now that egg can be, and oftentimes is, literal. It's a physical egg that breaks and the earth and the universe or people fall out of it. But it could be any natural container. It doesn't necessarily have to be an egg. It could be a flower that blossoms or a nut that opens. Anything that you have a natural container that from which life comes from. The third type of creation story is the earth diver story. And in this mythology, there's nothing on Earth but water. The entire planet is just one big ball of water. And one of two things happen. Either someone falls from the sky, and while they fall from the sky, they grab on to the sky realm and bring it down to Earth with them, or they dive down to the bottom of the ocean and bring up land as they return. Either of those would be still classified as the earth diver story. The world parent story is another common archetype in creation stories, and there are 2 patterns it could follow. The first is that you have a male and female deity joined together to create life, to create the earth, and to create people. Typically, the male in the story, regardless of the culture, is going to be represented by the sky or having dominion over the sky, while the female has dominion over the earth. Another version of the world parents archetype is the idea that a god dies and their body gets dismembered, or that is cut up into different pieces. And the different pieces of that god's body become different features on the Earth's surface or even people themselves. And then the last major archetype of creation mythology is the emergence. And this is the idea that humans were already living deep within the earth before recorded history. And the emergence myth says that a god or a goddess, actually it's almost always a goddess, leads them out of the underworld or from the bowels of the earth. Now, another version of the emergence archetype is when you have humans traveling through different worlds before they ultimately get to Earth. Again, they're almost always going to be led by a goddess in this situation, rather than a god.